I'm with Kenzer and Company, and we make Ace and H, which is a Wild West role-playing game, and hence the outfit I'm wearing. We also make Knights at the Dinner Table, which is a comic book about gamers and their life at the table and beyond. We also do Hackmaster, which is a fantasy role-playing game. We do a number of other games. The Great Space Race. Most game companies, it's difficult for people to say, this is my job, because you do everything. I mean, don't let anybody else fool you. You know, you're chief cook and bottle washer. It's an expression where I could call myself vice president of this or that, but the fact is that, yes, I mean, I write the books, I lay out the books, these other guys do the same thing. No one has a specific little role where I do this specific, we're just not that big enough of a company. Boot Hill is the classic TSR Western RPG. And, we played that when I was in high school 20 years ago. But part of the problem with Boot Hill is it came on the heels of Dungeons & Dragons, and most people play Boot Hill like they play D&D, which is, you saddle up, you get your guns, you want to get into a big gunfight, rob the bank, and basically, when you think about it, what you do in D&D is you're basically a bunch of criminals looting things, and that's what you do. And so, but when you translate that to like the Wild West, now you're a bunch of criminals looting things, which, in a modern perspective, is ludicrous. So, what we did with Ace and Eights, you have that aspect that if what you want to do is, engage in a bunch of gunfights, rob the bank, and do all this criminal stuff, that element's there, but there's a lot more behind the game. So, once you've tired of that and you actually want to develop a character, all the rules are there for the real reason most people went west, and that's for economic opportunity. The reason that people went west wasn't to rob trains, other than like maybe a few dozen people. Most of them were looking to establish themselves, start a business, make a lot of money, and make something of their lives. The Horatio Alger story, and that's what the game allows for. The way that the scenarios are set, there is, of course, it's a dangerous environment. So action and gunplay is certainly fun, but it isn't all that there is. It's like it's an exciting diversion for the players, but it doesn't have to be all that there is. The real game is building up your character, being an Elsewhere agent. If you watch Deadwood, there's a lot of really classic characters in Deadwood, and it isn't. Certainly there's a lot of violence in the show, but there's a lot more to it than just the violence. People are used to. If you just walk around this room, you'll see that people do more than just play D&D. And there's people that just want to kick doors and break things, and that's fine. And there's games for that, and there's people that play D&D where I've seen D&D adventures where no one draws a sword. Admittedly, it's kind of rare, but they're there. And so, there's a whole gamut of role players. There's people that are just looking to essentially play a tabletop first-person shooter versus people that are into collaborative storytelling, and everything in between. So, I think Ace and Eights can satisfy people. Clearly, we can fill the role of first-person shooter very well. But there's also there's a lot to the game that allows for, complicated role play as well.